Okay, so I'm just going to do a basic page setup in preparation for a title block that we'll set up on our brand new page, and then we'll put all that together and make a template and also a block for our title block that we can use in all our different projects. So the very first thing, make sure you're using the right template to start with before you have your own template. Definitely always use AutoCAD ISO. And I'll just make sure it's not confusing. You've got others with AutoCAD ISO in the name, which actually can be useful, but we're going to not use those. So AutoCAD ISO name plot styles and name plot styles 3D, don't use those. And then AutoCAD ISO 3D down below, again, avoid that. It's just AutoCAD ISO. Always use that if you're not sure. And watch out for when this is selected. AutoCAD can be used, but to change that into a metric template is a lot of work. So you're creating work for yourself if you don't check that. Make sure you can use AutoCAD ISO. It's set up to metric. And I'll just point at that one thing. It's using colour-dependent plot styles, which might sound like a long-winded technical thing, but it's actually really important that we have that. So colour-dependent plot styles and metric is what we're getting from that template. And so we'll go and have a look at the layers that you can use later, and I'll give you a detailed list of layers, but for now I'm just going to make the layers that I need as I go. And also I'm going to set up the page that I want as the very first step. So down where you've got your tabs, make sure you've got those 3 tabs showing Model, Layout 1 and Layout 2. And I'm going to go to Layout 1, and then as soon as I've got that open, check the page setup. And that should be your first step. Whenever you're looking at these layouts, you need to know what page you're looking at, what that size is and what the setup is. And the easiest way to check that is to right-click on the tab and go to the Page Setup Manager. Then you'll see it comes up with this option. You don't really need to think too much about this. Usually you just click Modify. And then you've got your page setup, which is very similar to most other programs that you can use to print, especially graphics programs like all the Adobe programs, but other CAD programs as well have a similar setup. So you generally want to choose your printer first, and you have all the physical printers here that we're connected to, but it's often a good option to set up the printing with a PDF, a virtual PDF printer. And you've got a few to choose from. You've got Adobe PDF, which is actually okay, but have you noticed any errors that you get with that? If you haven't, when you start working on bigger projects, you're going to start to see that. Yeah, it does. Yep, that's the problem. Big things, it's a memory issue. That's why I tell people don't save directly onto your memory sticks either, because that creates similar problems. So saving onto a hard drive, a physical hard drive that's connected to your computer or a network drive is much better practice. And these programs basically are designed to work that way. So really bad idea to save directly onto memory sticks or even external drives. There are lots of technical issues there, which I'll get to later, but then the other problem, again, that Adobe thing has a memory issue. So think about getting other virtual PDF creators on your own computers, like Primo PDF is a good free one that you can all install. Qt PDF is another one. So they're 2 free options that basically do the same thing as the Adobe PDF.
Doesn't Apple come with its own?
Yeah, Apple's got one as well, yep. And Microsoft have one as well. So Microsoft have the, Microsoft Print to PDF. But I found that those, and the Apple one as well, they don't have all the options that the Adobe one does. But these other free ones, Primo and Qt, seem to have all the options you need, and they don't crash like the Adobe one does. So it's good just to have them as a backup. The Microsoft Print to PDF one, as I just said, is pretty terrible. Use it if you have to, but usually, well, it only goes to A3, I think, and it's got some other issues. So Primo, Primo. It's actually, I think the company is called Nitro that make it, but it's the free version is called Primo. And then Qt. If you haven't heard about Qt, they make lots of free programs like FTP programs. Yeah. So they're good for free software, and their PDF, Qt PDF is really good. So also you have, just for AutoCAD, not for Revit unfortunately, but for AutoCAD you've got this DWG to PDF, which is Autodesk one. So just for AutoCAD is one of the best, actually. Makes really good PDFs. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So all of those are good options, but if you can get the Adobe one to work, it's not that bad when it works. And I don't get the errors on my huge memory supercomputer at home that's got 96 gig of RAM. I don't get these errors with the Adobe thing because it never runs out of memory. So I'm pretty sure it's a memory issue. Anyway, if you can get it to work, Adobe's good. And the reason it's good to have a virtual printer is that if you go from one computer to another, doesn't matter what printers you've got connected, you still get the same page setup options and things like that. So the printer, the reason I've spent a bit of time talking about that is because the printer then determines the options you get for things like your page size. And so there, let's go for maybe A3. Actually, I'll better confirm if John has some ideas about the preferred page size, but normally I think if you can do A3 it's good because we can print on all the laser printers and it's just a nice manageable page size. We're going to do a range of different page sizes of course. Plot style table. For now I'll just say monochrome, but we're going to come back and have a good look at that. That is actually a really good thing to look at. Very briefly just showing you there some of the settings. It's one of the great things about CAD programs like AutoCAD, that you can use these to control your line weights and things like that. Oh. Okay, so well that shouldn't be, so someone might have modified that file, but in the default settings it should just print everything black. So yeah, so the file must have been modified. It can be modified. Yeah, so it could have been changed on your computer. Yeah. That's when you should use monochrome. Yeah, that's the best option. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because essentially monochrome uses the line weight settings you've got in your layers, but then sets all the colours to black, and that's what you want. So that's fine as long, and then you don't have to worry about those standard colours like you do with the old layer standards. So generally monochrome there, but we'll go right through plot style tables later, and then what to plot. If you're working on a layout, generally you want that option to be layout. So in other words, if you've got a layout tab open, and then the scale. And again, pretty much always, if you're working from a layout, set that to 1:1. And then here's one of the other options that can trip people up. That's where you have one of the main settings that determines if you're in metric or imperial. So if you've got that on inches, notice how the scale changes, and it works really differently. Imperial scales are really different to metric scales. So that has to be on millimetres or nothing else will make sense. But again, as long as you've got that on millimetres 1:1. So the scale here isn't the scale of your drawing, it's the scale of your page. So you get 1:1. That's really good. So we've got our page set up. And until you've done your page set up, you can't really do much with your page because you don't know how big that page is that you're working with. So really important that you do that first. I didn't check the landscape. Yep, it's on landscape, so that's fine. Even though here you can see it's got them back to front. Normally the width should be first.
What about the scale line weight? Check that line.
Yeah, that should be, where is it? I always forget that because you just leave that on the default. Blind. Oh yes, no, don't tick that. Do not tick that, yes. No, absolutely not. No. So yeah, just leave that one alone. I don't know, no, it's annoying that they put that option in because you should never need to use that with architectural drawings. You don't want to scale line weights at all. So, yeah, that's really important. Okay, so I've got the page now at a size that I know. And maybe I can just give you a couple of quick examples to make that clear. So if I draw a rectangle now, we know the size of an A3 page. So I'll start at 0, 0. That's my origin. When I press enter, you can see it starts not on the corner of the page, but on the corner of the print area. Right, and that's that dashed line. Yeah. And so then, again, we know the size, well, you should know the size of an A3 page. Oh, you're kidding. Okay. Yeah, close. Yeah, see, I'm from the days before computers, believe it or not, and we had to remember things before the internet anyway. So, yeah, well, the one you want to remember is A4, is 210 by 297, and then double 210 is 420, of course. So 420 by 297 is A3. And then to get to A2, you double the shorter side again. So 297 times 2 is 594. And 594 by 420 is A2. Going up to A1, you've got to watch out though, because when you go to A1, double A2, 420 is 840, but you add 1 millimetre when you get to A1. And then when you get to A0, you double it, and then the French people who came up with these standards. Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's it. They love their standards, and then they go and break all the rules. Yeah, anything metric, I'm pretty sure they would have, yeah. There probably would be a reason to do with printing, machinery and things like that, I'd say, maybe. Yeah, something to do with, there would be a reason, but who knows. Just one of those things you've got to remember. So you can see here, though, I'll just type that in. So let's type in 420, comma, 297. And, of course, it's going to go off the page because I didn't start on the corner of the page. I started within the print area. So I'll go and draw another rectangle, again, starting at the same point. Sorry? Yes, it does. So the origin, that's what's a bit confusing. So the origin on a layout, 0, 0, isn't the corner of the page. So because the print area is slightly smaller than the page, if I want to draw a rectangle that's telling us the size, we need to know what that print area is. I can look it up. We can also just do it by eye, to be honest. If you zoom right in there and just click on that dashed line, you can see then how big the print area is, and that could be a good thing to know. So here we go, that's very close. And I'll delete my first rectangle, or maybe even better, I'll move it. And again here, you can do what I used to say you should never do, but it's okay. Do it by eye, and you can snap onto the page, and then you've got one for the outside of the page. So that'll be helpful when you start to set out your title block, even though I'm going to recommend that you then clear any lines that you've got going around your page, because it makes it look like a very technical drawing, more for construction than the sorts of drawings you will be doing usually. So even though we're doing construction drawings, you want them to look more like drawings by designers. And I think it's okay, as long as you've got a technical-ish title block, not to have all the other things that make it look like a really technical drawing that's maybe done by an engineer or a surveyor or a draftsperson rather than an interior designer. So, yeah, exactly, yeah. I'll show you my construction drawings. I don't have page borders, even though I've got all the stuff in the title block that you might want. So, anyhow, we'll have it to start with, and then you can definitely design and make your title blocks look nice and designing, if you want to, even though they're for construction. And then, okay, so then we've got the viewport, and we can start to then think about how scale works. So, going back to my model tab, just again give you some very simple examples. I'm going to draw a rectangle here. Or, sorry, let's even look at how you can get things from the layout onto the model tab. So you might have drawn things here. Sometimes you might do it by mistake. Sometimes you do it on purpose. But you then want to have that back in your drawing and be able to work with it. So I'm going to go to the clipboard panel. So very quickly, I just selected the rectangle by clicking on it. Right click, go to clipboard, and then choose copy. And then you can go back to the model tab, right click, go to clipboard, and no paste. This is good to see because it's a little bug in the program. Sometimes you've got to just check to see that it's working properly. So I'll do this again. Select, right click, clipboard, copy. And you can see there it says copy clip 1 found. So it should have worked. Let's just try again. So back to here, right click, clipboard, and still not doing it. It's annoying. So right click, it's one of those really frustrating things. Yeah, it's pasting here. So now you can paste from layouts to model. So why isn't it letting me? Let's just try copy with base point. And I'll type 0, 0, and let's just try that again. Doesn't want to do it. Okay. No, yeah, it's. I think they've blocked it. It used to work, but I think they've actually blocked it, so you can't paste. You did it? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, it should work, but yeah. Yeah, with some things it happens, and it's mostly that copy and paste thing. There are a few little bugs with it. But I'll show, that's good because I can then show you another way. So the old way, before, yeah, you'd think it would work, but again, copy and paste is actually a fairly new function in AutoCAD. It only came in about 15 years ago, or maybe 20, but they didn't always have it. But we could still work without it. Yeah, so I'll show you. So I've selected my rectangle, W, enter. That's W block. So I'm then going to browse and choose a folder. Now this is not a very useful block, but I'm just going to... Well, kind of. Sort of, but you'll see only a couple of steps. So I'm just going to go here, A3, page, done. And now back to here. Well, now I can just go insert and then browse. There it is. Yeah, it might, yeah, but it still does the job. So here, there's my, yeah. It usually would work with the copy paste, but it's still good to know the other option because that W block is essentially doing the same thing as copy and paste. You'll see when we, and it's really important that you can do it with W block later when we work with blocks. Oh, well, sometimes you'll just forget. Yeah, and you might, I still do it. So I'll forget that I'm in the layout, because often you will be drawing on your layouts, but in a viewport, and then you'll forget sometimes that you've switched back to paper, and then you might have drawn quite a few things. If you're doing a detail, you draw a lot of lines in, and then go, oh God, I want all those lines, but it's in paper space. So you can always take that back to model space if you have to. Yeah, copy and paste, yep. But worst case, if copy and paste isn't working for you, you can always W block it. Worst case. And it's good to know that. So what I really want to show you here though is that I've got this page, and so if I go back into my layout now, I just want to have something in the viewport that you could see. So how big do we make this viewport? Well, up to you. So that's a default viewport. You can delete that, and just so I can show you then how to make a new viewport. Do you remember where it is? One of those things you'll know if you've ever had to go searching for it, that it's not maybe in an obvious place. Yeah, you'd think it would be view, wouldn't you? I would have thought view. And I looked for it there for ages when this all changed to the ribbon and thought, where's viewport? Why can't you make it? Yeah, that would make sense too. It's in layout. And I wouldn't have looked there at first because when you're working on the model tab, there's no layout tab. It's one of those only context sensitive ones that you've got in AutoCAD. So you've got to be on a layout to even know that that layout tab exists. But then once you know, you go to layout, that's it. It's the rectangular button. So there's no viewport option there, but rectangular, and all of these basically are for viewport. So you have to go rectangular, and then you can click 2 points and make a viewport.
So you could put multiple viewpoints in.
Exactly.
Multiple
Exactly. So when you're setting up your default page, you might just have a viewport that's kind of a generic size, but you can always make as many as you want. So maybe I'll just make another one, so we can have a couple of different scales. And there, again, just want to have that rectangle so you can see we can have some different scales. And, now like I quickly switch between viewports by double-clicking. So you can double-click on the page to go to paper space, double-click inside the views, and then just click once to switch between them to go to model space. And then again, double-click to go back to your layout or paper space, and then you've got the button here that switches again between model and paper. And like I said, often I'll be drawing on the page these days because, especially if you've got the scale, so say you want the scale to be 1 to, let's make it 1 to 100, so it's nice and big. And then, also that's a small page, so I can go to 1 to 20 or something. Then you can always lock it. So you've got that lock next to your scale. No, just the viewport. Yeah, so it's good to think about that, because now, if I zoom, it zooms, I'm still drawing inside that viewport. That's right. It doesn't, that's it, that's right. So once you've got the scale you want, I mean, you can always unlock it if you want to change it again, but generally, if you've set a scale, say it's 1 to 20, and then you're drawing here, you don't want to be, when you're zooming, changing the scale of that viewport. Because then you have to go and set it again, and you've often got to reposition it, and it's a lot more work. So think about those things, but really, after you've got the page set up, then maybe you can start setting up your title block, because we're going to make the title block from the layout. So,
For us, so often we're putting in presentation in InDesign, though. Why is it
Yes.
so important to get your page so beautiful in order?
for construction drawings. But also, even though, I'll just show you very quickly some drawings that I've done with AutoCAD, that I've taken then into InDesign, but I did a lot of it, the title part, with AutoCAD, and so I'll just make sure I've got. Oh, here we go. I've got some in here. This one.
So you never go
Nice
so far
note,
as
sorry.
putting it up in InDesign for a construction drawing?
Oh no, definitely not. No. But even for presentation drawings, so I'm just looking for the example. Where did I put it? Oh, sorry, 2019. There we are. Yeah. So these are slightly technical drawings, but not full construction drawings. So, right, but you still need the, you know that building, maybe? Fenwick Stone? No, or maybe not, in Balmain. So, okay, so this part here, the scale bar and the north point, even though I think I did that text in InDesign, I did that in AutoCAD. So it's exactly the same on each page, so it's in the same position, even though moving slightly, but same position, looks the same, and the size is exactly the same because it's all been done in AutoCAD. And it's a lot easier to manage that way. And then when you bring it into InDesign, the line work comes across perfectly.
Is the finishes scheduled up in InDesign?
That's AutoCAD, yeah. And that's one thing I recommend. Look, we'll show you how to do tables in AutoCAD, but I'm not a fan at all of the table tool in AutoCAD. I think it's a bit of a waste of time. If you're doing a complex table, you'll want to do it in Excel anyway, and then bring that into InDesign to do a nice layout if you want it to look presentable. So I don't really see there's a need to use the AutoCAD table function, even though there is one. It's generally ugly as well, and it's hard to format, and it doesn't have all the functions that you've got with Excel. And if you're going to be doing a complex table that needs a bit of time put into it, Excel is so much more powerful. And yeah, so we'll touch on the AutoCAD tables, but yeah, I don't think they're really worth worrying about. So again, so I'll get you to set up a page, shouldn't take you very long, and then have a viewport, but we'll go into maybe working with scale a bit more with that as well. And then maybe think about drawing a couple of rectangles just to get an idea of the page border and then the printable area. See if you can get those set out. But then start setting up the lines for your title block. And for that, there's a really good reference, which I'll make sure it should be in this folder, but again, I'm new to this subject, so I'll have to check if it's on Moodle. Oh, that's right, it's down here, yeah. Okay, so you should have the metric handbook. But, well, you've also got this. Oh no, that's not the one I want. Okay, look, I'm just going to get this from another folder where I know it is, and I'll copy it all across, and then we'll put it all up on Moodle as well. So, the metric handbook. Do you all know that? You must, yeah. So, I've got a copy somewhere here. There it is. Yeah. So I'll give you a copy of that. If you don't have a PDF, it's a great thing, but go and buy it because, the hard copy is so much better. I have that by my desk. I mean, I couldn't work without it. And the hard copy, it just, yeah. Yeah, every design bookshop has it. Yeah, maybe on Amazon might be your best. Yeah, probably. Yeah. And So, okay, so the examples here of page setups are pretty good. Now, this is not the same as the full hard copy version I've got, but you can see there they've got all these basic principles for page sizes, how to fold your pages even. And there are architects out there who make you follow these folding methods, believe it or not, for archiving and everything. That's another one. Yeah, so this is the one by, I think, David Adler is the author. Yeah, so it's English. Yeah. Yeah. There's a German one that's brilliant, but it's obviously more for Europe, and there's an American one as well, and they're all really different. And unfortunately there's no Australian one. So then going down to next section, there is a bit of a guide for things like scale bars. So you should have a graphical scale as well. What are standard scales? So you definitely want to have a look at that. And then, sorry, I might just go back. Well, I'll let you read through that, but it's a really good thing just to get an idea of standard page formats. So that's a really good reference. And then the other one I wanted to give you. Yeah, the hard copy is brilliant. Yeah, I use it every day. And then, okay, so Australian standards. Let's see what you know. So, do you know which standard is the one for technical drawing that you should be using? This is one, it's actually a requirement of subjects you've already done that you look this up. But you might have missed it. Yes, yeah, it is. It's listed. I know, I've just reviewed all those subject guides.
I'd say you used it. We had a lot of, we skipped over a lot of stuff last year because we didn't have enough time.
Yeah. No, but if you read some of the subject guides, it will say that you need to look at this standard in particular because it's the one that's required for architectural drawing, and interior design drawing follow the same conventions. So it's this one. So AS 1100, Part 301, is the Australian standard for technical drawing. Part 301 is the architectural supplement. If you want to read the full standard, I've done it, and that was part of my life I'll never get back. It's 300 pages of engineering standards for technical drawing. I didn't do technical drawing in school, if anyone did. Those guys apparently think they know it all about technical drawing, but they learn more engineering type drawing, which isn't relevant for us. So this is the only one you need. No, you don't. It's actually, it holds you back in a way because they've got more of an obsessive approach to things like dimensions and drawing things the perfect size, and that's not so important. For architectural drawing, it's more about understanding the conventions and why we represent things in a certain way. And one of the key areas there that I think maybe isn't emphasised enough, even here, but we do emphasise it a lot, is line weight. That's probably the main idea that isn't as strong in engineering drawings. And in product design and people like that as well, they're the same. So for architectural drawings, line weight, and then there are some basic principles that you can read through and definitely look through this whole thing. It's a really good document. It's got all of the standards especially for construction drawings that we're going to be looking at. But I'm going to skip right to the end because it's got some sample drawings. And what do they have there? As well as the drawings, which we might come back to, you've got some standard title blocks. They're ugly, so you should be able to do a much better looking title block, I think, easily, than some of these. But it's got all the required information. And this will become second nature. After a while, you'll know which things you should have on every title block. And there are standard things you should always have. So the project, of course. So on every page, you should have the name of the project. And then on every page, you need the name of the sheet, the date, scale, sheet size is a good one. It's not always there, but that's, I think, a really good thing to have. Who it's drawn by, is that on here actually? Maybe that's not essential, but I'd always have that as well. Drawing name, and then the really important thing, the two really important things, project number or job number and drawing number. So they're all the essentials. So as long as you've got those things to remind you, you can then start to set up those things on your page. So to get started with that, you want to know how to draw lines. So I'll make a layer. And now, I don't need to go too much into making layers and things. You've all done that. No? Okay, so layer properties. And then it's the first button in that group of 4 there. It makes a new layer. So we're going to call it A and O. A for architecture, and O for annotation. And so that's the naming convention. And then it's up to you. This is just a descriptor, so title maybe. Oh yeah, anno is annotative, yeah. Okay, so that's a standard way of naming layers that is common throughout AutoCAD. So then, now for colours. I'm not fanatical about colours, except that you use colours that make sense for you, not the things out of the list that you might have been given before. That's a really old thing, those standard colours. Do you know why they had standard colours? It was because the colours used to represent a line weight. So if you made a layer red, that would always print, say, 0.35 or whatever red was. Yeah. Yeah.
As soon as they don't align with the size, it's something like why
That's right. Yeah, well, so now the colours are just for you. So that you on the screen can see, without having to check the layer, which layer the thing's on. And also the material. So I don't use colours to represent line weights anymore because it just doesn't make sense for me. No, definitely not, because they're just hard to look at. So if you look at a massive drawing with everything white, you can't tell which layers things are on and what the materials and things like that are. So I tend to just use the materials as a bit of a guide for the colour I want. So if it's, say, masonry, the standard colour for masonry is like a terracotta. So I use one of these colours that are like that. So around colour 30 or so. So yeah, so you can use whatever colours you want.
And also that AutoCAD used to be website colours too. Now
Yeah.
you can choose any colour.
That's right. Now, but watch out for that. Don't use true colour. If you start using true colour, which is your full 15 million colours, well, not the full, but
Maybe that's what I think.
yeah, that's right. If you'd used that would have caused a problem because it would have. Because okay, so the reason is true colour you can do any colour, and that's great if you want to print colours, but index colours are the ones that are tied to that plot style table I showed you before. So they're the ones that pick up the line weights, and the colour will be set to black.
Right. So that's probably what it's wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So these, we'll go more into this later, but for now, yeah, just stick with index colours because we want everything to print black. So those index colours are there just as a guide for you. And then for things like text, we often just stick with white. Now, the other great thing about AutoCAD is that black and white are the same colour. Yeah.
Yeah, it's clear as mud.
Yep. I know, it sounds crazy when you explain it, but it makes perfect sense because
And neither of them are colours.
you can't print white. Right, so if you make something white, it doesn't print.
What if you got a black paper?
You can't. Well, how does that work? Yeah. No, it does. Well, I know. Look, nowadays you can print white, but in the old days you really couldn't, and definitely with AutoCAD, you wouldn't want that. So essentially, if something's white on the screen, it prints black. So if you're drawing on a black background, which is common in AutoCAD, then you'll draw white lines, but you want them to print black. So again, black and white in AutoCAD, the same colour. So here, when you choose white, if you go to a black background, it'll be white, but when we're drawing on the page, that'll be black. All the other colours are the colours you'll see. And text is generally white, so I'm not going to change that colour. Excellent. Look at that. That's right. Yeah, again, black and white, the same colour in AutoCAD. Even though when you go to true colour, white is white and black is black. Right? But it's these index colours are a bit different. It's all to do with the old printing conventions and pens. See here, notice how I've chosen true colour white, and it comes up white. We don't want that. So back to here, and index colours are the ones down the bottom. Sorry, index colours are all of these. These are your standard colours at the bottom, and they're based on primaries, and again, that's the white we want.
Stay away from true colours.
Yeah, for now, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, what line?
So then text, you don't want it too heavy, but you also don't want it too light. So anything from, depending on what it is, sometimes dimensions you'll take it down to even 0.15, but then regular text and lines and things like that on your title blocks you might have up to 0.25, but you will have a couple of different line weights. So I'm going to go for 0.18 to start with, and we'll maybe look at adjusting that.
Make a difference of what size line you can use.
The line weights, do you mean? It makes a little bit of a difference, but for title blocks, you probably would want them the same. But you're right in a way. Line weights do vary depending on scale, but we'll get more into that later with details. Okay, so I've got my basic layer, and then maybe I'll just double click to make that the current layer. This button here does the same thing. And so then we can draw lines for the things I want, and then also you can, of course, take lines from things that I've already drawn. So if I want to use the lines from that rectangle that I've drawn, well, maybe we want to make sure that it goes into the printable area. Of course, we want it to be able to print. Okay, so click on the button down the bottom that says Model, and that'll make sure you can double click outside the viewport as well. Yep. So that's the printable area for this PDF page, but I want to be a bit smaller than that to be safe for other printers. So I'm going to offset, and maybe I'll do it in 2 mil increments. So I'm just going to offset distance 2, and I've selected it already, so I can just click inside, and I might just do a couple of goes to see how that looks, and then and you can even, if you're going to do this to work with lots of different page setups, you can go back in to your page setup manager, which I can do through here, and go to page setup, or the same as before, right click on the tab and go to page setup manager. And it's good just to try some different printers. So I'm going to try the printers we've got in this room. So that's this one here, PLEO1, that's the laser printer. And leave it on A3. Now that's going to rotate at A3, unfortunately, so I'm going to go to regular A3, because it's slightly different.
Why would you have it set up always? Why are you wanting to be individual printer? Like originally when you set it up, you set it up to Adobe.
Oh yeah, because if I go and work on a different computer, it's going to be connected to different printers.
But if we were at home and our computer's always just up to our same.
Yeah, it's just not a safe because that's right. Yeah, it's better to set up here. Yeah, but it is good to test it with different printers, like I'm doing now. So you would test it, especially if you're using a particular printer. Definitely test it with that.
Because they don't print.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm showing you. They all have different printable areas. Yeah, some are full bleed these days, but most of them do have a printable area. So see how now this dashed line's a different size.
Yeah.
So this one, the first one offset, is still too big, but the next one, that's okay. So that's what I'm checking. And then I'll go back and try some other printers. So I'll go back and check the plotter. Okay, so the plotter is anything with PI in the name. The laser printers are all PL, and then the plotter is this one here, PI E106, PI 001. Unfortunately, I looks like an L. Okay, now it might be having trouble connecting because it may not be turned on, but it should be alright. Yep, that's right. Okay, so now it's gone to oversized A3, which is okay, but I still want to see how it looks with just normal A3, which will be there, just in case. This one should be alright. Okay, so it's got, again, a different printable area, but this one looks okay. So I'm just going to get rid of all these other rectangles and keep that one that I've got now that's inside and should be pretty safe. In other programs, they call this a safe frame, so that's the area that we're safe to print. And so I'm happy with that. And then I can explode this rectangle. Selecting it, click explode, and then make sure that the lines I want, I don't really want these lines at the top, and I'll keep the sides for now though, and then I'll maybe offset and start setting up the title block. So again, you don't even need to have it going the full length of the page like you'll see it does in a lot of these technical drawings. You can do one that's a bit more stylised. Even this would be okay as a starting point where you've just got some text and then the scar bar on the north point, but maybe would be better to have like a little block, and I'll give you some other examples very quickly that I've got in Revit. I'm not going to make you watch me draw it all. Oh yeah, there's a few, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to put a title block into Revit. Because I've got it there. No. I'm going to get this back to AutoCAD, but I just want you to see it for now, to maybe see some title blocks that are still for construction, but again, maybe not quite as technical looking as some of the others. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And, God, I don't know how to hear, I thought I did. Well, this one I'll do actually, and then I'll modify it. This is what I was looking for, but it's got the logo that I didn't want. Okay, so see how it's got most of the same information, but it's a bit cleaner than a lot of those others, I think. So we'll get rid of this. Yeah, so that could be a bit nicer. Yeah. And so, yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll take that back into AutoCAD now. And that's another good thing for you to see. So I'll go back and, yeah. And I'll do it from a sheet, actually. From a layout in a project, in other words. So there we are. Okay, so there's my thing in Revit that I want to take back to AutoCAD. So you can all do this. If you've got something in AutoCAD that you want to use to start with, you can always make sure you do it from a project file. Go to the File menu, CAD Formats, DWG. Click Next. And the tip I'm going to give you there, especially at first, just turn that option off every time. You don't need to work with XREFs at this point, and they'll usually get in the way. You'll know when you want them, and generally you won't want them. Were you shown to use XREFs? Were you shown to use XREFs before? I know some of the other classes they were, but good, no, if you weren't, that's good. So, well, look, I'll just save this so I can get to it. I won't give it to you yet. Right, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Oh, God, don't do that.
That's why we never make title block.
Oh, no, don't. When you bring Illustrator files into AutoCAD, it's a huge amount of work to clean them up and make them work. Oh, but you went through Illustrator, or something, what are you saying? Oh, no. Oh, you didn't say Illustrator. Oh, the XREFs. Oh, right, yeah. Oh, yeah, it creates so much work. And normally you just don't need them. Oh, God, it's easy to fix. You just bind all the XREFs and that fixes it. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, so I've got my lines, and the reason I did that was just to get the lines so I didn't have to make you, watch me draw them, because I'm sure you can all draw lines. But I'm going to show you how to do the text, because I don't want to just copy and paste the text. I want to show you how to make text, and setting the size for text is another thing that's a bit fiddly. So all these things are hopefully it's revision before we get into making the attributes and all that. So just so you know where we're heading. So I've got my things that I want, but I'm going to just make sure I've only got these lines, because again, hopefully that's what you can do. So this time, again, right click and copy, and I'll use copy with base point and type 0, 0 as my base point. Go to my new file, and then right click, clipboard. This time, see what I mean? Let's try this. No. Oh yes, this worked. Paste the original coordinates. Yeah, it's just bizarre the way that option works, but here it's worked. Now, it's not in the right place, but that's all right, because I'm sure it's because it's using the origin, and I don't really care anyway. I just want to get that into my printable area. Yep, that's fine. By eye, you don't need to be too fanatical about measurements here. So I've got my lines, they're exploded, and I can then change them all to the same layer. Now watch out for these options here, where you've got properties. Make sure all of those are on by layer, if you want to be using the layers, colours, and the other things that you're setting, and you do. So I've got my lines, but I'm sure you could all do that. And so then, well, I don't even really need these lines that I started with before, but I know that I'm inside them, and that's the main thing. And then, last thing I want to show you, and I'll give you hopefully plenty of time to try these, is text. How to get it the right size. Is that something that caused problems before? Yeah, I know, it is confusing until it's explained. So, yeah, because, yeah, if you use annotative, I think it's easier, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people, and I know Tanya probably would have not shown you annotative, because she would be used to doing it the old way, the way it was done for over 20 years in AutoCAD, without that option, annotative. So that's where it can be confusing, because if you're not using annotative, then you have to scale your text in your head. That's the problem. Now I'm going to show you both methods, but for now, just use annotative. And if you're drawing on your page, you don't have to scale it anyway. And it's a lot easier, so it's always one-to-one. It's when you're doing it in a viewport that you've got to think about the scaling. And then again, I think annotative makes it much easier, but I'll explain that in more detail later. So for now, just to go through the steps. First thing, to set your text size and set up your style, always set up a style first, and it makes your life much easier. Click on the annotation panel there. Don't worry about going to the annotate tab. You can do it all from the home tab if you click there. And then you've got these different options for text, dimensions, and leaders and tables. So the first one, text style, is next to the list of your styles. The button there with the A on it lets you make text styles. So that should be your first step. So which one's the...
Just that font is the symbol that's used.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah, for once, yeah, they're on the same page as everyone, yeah. So then, okay, so we've got annotative. That's the one we're going to use. You should have that style already there. Then, here you've got the font. You can use any font you like. I know Arial's not the most beautiful, but it's essentially poor man's Helvetica. So if you want to use Arial, that's okay. There are others that are nice though, like Tahoma is a nice one that's getting pretty popular now. And there are others. Switzerland Condensed is one I use all the time, because that's another poor man's Helvetica that has a few different options. So Switzerland Condensed is any of these Swiss 721. They're all based on Switzerland Condensed. And Switzerland, if you know what Helvetica means means Switzerland, or from Switzerland. So, yeah, it's another, yep, the Helvetii or whatever, some barbarian tribe. Yep, barbarian, that just means, you know, German. Not in a nasty way, you know, your Roman history. Yep. So, okay, so the Switzerland fonts there are good, and I'll just use one of those maybe. Swiss 721, LT, CNBT, or any of those. CNBT is good. And you can, of course, just flick through them like a lot of other programs. So Swiss 71BT is actually what I'll use. Yeah, yeah. And then you've got the height. So you can set the height here to a standard height, and it makes your life so much easier if you just put a height in. It will work if you leave that on 0, you might have noticed. You can still get a height to go in later, but don't do that. Set a height, and you'll see in a minute why it makes it so much easier. And again, make sure you leave that annotative option, and that's it. Yeah, and it's in millimetres. So the minimum height for text, well, do you know the smallest size you should make your text? And I used to be really naughty, and when my eyes were better, yeah, and make it smaller because I could read smaller text. But I'm old and I can't read small writing anymore. I can't. It's just if anything's closer than a metre to my eyes, I can't really read it. If it's less than this size, yeah, it's tough. Yeah, your eyes. It happens to everyone. Yeah. So below 2 mil is hard for people to read if they've got, you know, that condition. Short. Points, I have to work it out. I've looked it up. It's about 8. Yeah, I think it's around 8, but I'll have to look it up. Yep, so for these things though, at least it's always in millimetres, so 2 mil. If you really have to, you can go to 1.8, but 2's better. But that's if you have to go to a smaller size. Otherwise, 2.5 is generally your smallest, and then 3.5 is the next one up, and then 5 is the next one above that. So 2.5 is a good one to start with, and that's it. So I'm going to click apply, and it's also, firstly, also set current to make sure it's the current style. Make sure you click apply and then close, and we can draw some text. So this is just to set up the text fields, and we'll turn them into attributes later. And you've got two options. You've got single line and multi-line. They'll both work, but for now, I think probably the easiest just to use multi-line. And if you had problems with it before, it would have been because there was no text height set. Once you set that text height and it's annotated, it'll come up much better. So here, if I go multi-line, and then I'll click and drag to make my text box, and then type away, you can see it's working just fine. And again, it's all because of that setup. Yeah, so that's right, you get the ribbon up here you can use to adjust the settings, so you can still change the height, right? So you don't have to worry about putting all the heights in first, you can change it on the fly, but as long as you've got that starting height, otherwise it doesn't work as well. Yeah, so then once you've finished it, you can either close it up here or just click to the side and it should keep it. So try and set up the fields. So here the top one is for the drawing name. So you can double click to change the text after you've started making it. And so that's a label, and that could be smaller. That doesn't need to be, you know, big and readable, because the thing we really will be able to read is the title that will go to the right. So to change it after you've made it, you can either double click, and then you've got to still select it there, and then you can just go and type in the height you want. So let's make it 2. Oops, try that again. 2. What's going on? 2. Yeah, it should still work. No, it's just... so there's something happening with the... no, so it does work. Just got a backspace afterwards. Yeah, so type 2 and then it'll highlight the bit. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so 2 and then enter, and you can see that has changed. And you've got all the other formatting options there. You can, of course, choose, just like Word or whatever. And I suppose I'll put a colon in. Right, so then you can just start to think about the fields and label them all. And so you can, of course, copy text, just like anything else. And then just start to get these basic fields set up. So they weren't labelled even on this one, but we want those labelled. So client. Maybe this is going to be slightly more of a construction title block than the other one I had, so I'm going to add a few more lines in. And yeah, so then project name. So you can design your own title block and lay these out how you like. Just an example. So project. What else do we want? Drawing number. So I normally keep that in the bottom right. Something like that. We want the date. And so I'm going to copy another line across. Oops. Yep, 30 mil. Something for... No, I want to make those even, so I'll show you. These things are a lot easier if you just draw in some construction lines sometimes, and then you can always snap to those. And so, what else we got? Scale and date. So, okay, so I think what I'll have to do here is have the project number over on the left, because you need a project number and a drawing number. And then you should have a project name, of course, as well. Now, do we need a client here? Normally, you definitely would always have a client. Yeah. Yeah, well, we're essentially the client. So, I think I'll leave a field for it because it's just good practice to have one, but... Yeah, do that, yeah. Okay, so I'll just put in another field for the project name. And I want to have this nice and neat, so let's just bring this one up, actually, that'll make sense. And then we can have, yeah, that'll work. It's not my beautiful title block, but you can do a better job, I'm sure. So I'll call this project name and the other one drawing name. Yeah, I can make it look better later, but that's all the required fields, I think. Can't think of anything else. Oh, yes, I can. Really important one, actually. Exactly. Yeah, so I've got drawing number. That'll do. But yeah, you're on the right track. So yeah, the version or the amendment should go, or can go, with the drawing number. So often you'll have a little extra field for that. And so I'll just draw in a, maybe just a rectangle even, for my little letter for the amendment number. So it'll have an A, B, or... Yeah, oh yeah, you for this you will, because you need to do amendments. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, but you will definitely for this subject, because we'll be giving you markups and changes to make. Yeah. Yes. No, that's right. Yeah, because you're not doing construction, you're doing design mostly. But yeah, from now on, yeah, you will. So I think that's enough for those things, and then once you've got that working, we can then stick some attributes in and turn this into a block that you can then use in all your projects, and you can keep developing it and updating it and bring those changes into all your projects as long as you're using blocks effectively for that. Yes. Yes, I do too. If you get a good one that's stylised, yeah. Look, I think for construction drawings it's not really essential. For design drawings, yeah, I think it is a good idea. But a logo, but it's got to be good. I think the problem is when they're these over-the-top, really graphical things. Yeah, keep it simple, nice and clean is better. If you get a nice, really good-looking one, I think it's good to use it. But yeah, for construction drawings, I think no, it's not essential at all. No, yeah. Sorry? Oh yeah, so we'll have to give you the steps to make that into a block. But otherwise, if you already started doing it, then just, yeah, we'll try and, just make it look good. And well, I'm going to change mine and make it look better than this. Yeah, it can definitely look a lot better. Well, okay, then the other thing, if you've got that working, have a go at doing a north point and a scale bar. Yeah. Scale bars. Okay. Oh, I better show you that. But I just don't want to give you too many things in one recording. But you happy? You happy for me to keep going? Okay. Yeah. Okay, because you can all do this. It's just text and lines so far. So, yeah. Yes. Okay. I'll release your screens, and then you can watch the rest. I can try. What's your computer number?
Can I go away for a coffee break? What's going now? Be released.
So, 16. Okay. Yeah, so I want to actually make sure you've got time to do all this, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, I can do this. So let's just... Okay, so... Yep. Okay, so yeah, so they're two good things to see. Okay, so north points. There are some standard sizes for these, but you almost can do it by eye. So I think the standard size is around that. It's around 10 mil radius, so 20 mil diameter. But if you look it up, you'll see there are other standard sizes probably as well. That kind of works. Because notice we're not drawing in model space, so we don't need to scale it. We're drawing it in layout, so it's 1-to-1, the size it would print. And for north points, well, you're going to steal mine now, and I didn't design this, but I'd like to think I did. That's my north point, and I just give a heavier line weight to this line, and that does it for me. Yes, I know, there are lots that are basically the same, and I thought I'd come up with it, yes. Okay, so for that, I've got my 0.18 layer, so I can make another A and O. Oops. Yeah. Title heavy. Your radius was 10. Yeah. Title heavy. So it's just going to have a heavier line weight, so I'll do 0.35. And so I'm going to put that line, of course, onto the layer for the heavier line weight, but I can't see that yet. So I'm going to also just go down and make sure I've got line weight ticked in that options there, where you click on the lines there to get all the customization options. And then you get this button here to turn on and see your line weights, and it does give you that slightly heavier line, which is a bit nicer. So we can make it even a bit heavier maybe. Oh no, I did viewport line weight, so that was a mistake. I'll put that back. Oh, you've got to make sure you're seeing it on screen, so I'll just come back to that. Okay, so there, now one of the things you've got to watch out for, once you set viewport line weight, unfortunately it seems to not lock them together anymore. But you can always just set them both the same. But try to avoid that one. Just leave viewport line weight alone and only set line weight, and it'll do both. So with 0.5, it should really stand out that that's a heavy line. And the little N at the top doesn't hurt. So you don't have to. Yeah. It's up to you. But again, yeah, it doesn't hurt. I prefer it without the N as well, but I did get some feedback from a pretty senior architect marking one of my assignments one time that said, your north point is obtuse. Because I can't understand it. Because I don't know which, you didn't put an N on it, yeah.
Not a minimal, that's obviously.
Yeah, it was a she, yeah, that's right, yeah.
That would have been a no-no.
Yeah. So, yeah, look, you don't have to put it in, but if you want to, that's one instance where you might want to use single line text. So you can then click a point to place it. It'll ask you for the rotation angle. I'll type 0, and then type my capital N. And the advantage with single line text is that it's easier to rotate. So if I rotate the north point later, it goes with it. So that's your north point, and that should generally go in the vicinity of your title block. In fact, that's way too big. I don't know what I'm thinking about that size. So that's just too big. So the size that I'm remembering is, for some reason, 35 mil. Just doesn't look pretty. It's 20 mil across. Yeah, it's too big. So I'm going to scale that by about 70%. So it's a good chance to look at the scale tool as well, because that's a good thing to experiment with when you're changing the size of these objects. I've selected my lines. I'm not going to select the text. And I'll just click scale and click the base point, which I'll make the top of the north point, so it scales to that point. And I'll type in let's try 0.75 to make it 3/4. Maybe that's what I want. Yeah. Anyway, do what you want. Whatever you think looks good, as long as it's readable. So that one you can work out, but then the scale bar.
Sorry, wait, how did you anchor the north at the end to the actual point?
Oh, when I scaled it, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you just rotated them together, right?
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, just because I use single line
Just
text.
select both of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, check that when it's asking you for rotation angle at the beginning, make sure you type 0. Yeah.
And 0 is where you start with the line, no matter where you start with the line.
Yeah. So that's the thing with single line text, it will always ask you for the rotation angle at the
If
beginning.
you do it from down, from up to down, then the 0 would be at the top.
Okay, so that's the north point. Definitely have a go at doing one of those. And then the scale bar. So for those, you've got to use real measurements. The scale, of course, the scale bar is to give us a visual reference to measurements. So I'll start by drawing a line and just click a point and then come across. And before we, I suppose, can draw our scale, we need to know what the scale is that we're trying to represent or work with. So what's your standard scale for interior design? What scale do you use most commonly? Well, you're probably getting towards 1 to 100 for the larger projects that you're starting to do, but 1 to 50 is the more standard scale for interiors, because you're often working at a smaller scale than in architecture. Yeah, that's normal, because there are the standard scales: 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 20, 1 to 50.
Yeah, just we haven't had one more consistently.
Oh, right, yeah, sure. Okay, so if I draw a line now, and on the page, then in paper space, try to think about the sizes. So maybe I'll start by drawing the full length of my scale bar. So I'm going to do a short one, which would be 5 metres. A long one would be 10 metres. So 5 metres, right, which is 5,000 at 1 to 50. Probably should have done 1 to 100 because the math's easier. But 5 metres, okay, so 5,000 at 1 to 50. How long's that going to be? Yeah, but it's good to go do this in your head.
No.
Exactly, 100. Yeah, so it's going to be 100 mil long. And maybe to really get a good handle on that, I've just gone to paper space. So I've gone to model space, double clicking the viewport, and I'm going to change the scale there to 1 to 50. And then I'm going to draw a line. That's the length I'm trying to represent. So I'm going to draw that line 5 metres long, 5,000. So that's at 1 to 50. Right, because the scale is set down here. Drawing it on the page, I've done the maths in my head to work out how long that line would need to be 5 metres at 1 to 50. And again, it's 100 mil. So we've got that. And so now I'm going to draw another line, starting from that same point. I'm going to come across, and let's just open up the drawing I showed you before that has the scale bar there, and we'll zoom and have a look at the measurements. Oops, go back up. So it's 2.5 metres long. Oh, so I did it 5 metres long, didn't I? So we want to actually do it 2.5 metres. 5 metres, sorry, is the longer one for 1 to 50. So I want it to be 2.5 metres. I'm going to draw another line and make it half the length I did before. So in other words, 50 mil. So, yeah. So that's good. So that, yeah, so then, you will do this in your head normally once you get used to it. Okay, so if that's obviously 2.5 metres long at 1 to 50, and then we want a line that now is half of this distance. So that's 1 metre. So I want this to be half a metre. Right, so half a metre. Half a metre at 1 to 50. So half a metre is 500 mil. At 1 to 50, it's 10. And then to make it nice graphically, I might make it half of that down, so I'll come down 5. And then come across again, 10. And then back up again. Right, so then I can draw maybe another line starting at the beginning and come down, 5? And now I could even just stretch this line back, bring this one across. There we are. So, oops, that's not it.
So in theory, you do this once and then you just import it.
Oh, that's right. Once for each scale, and you'll have a scale bar, that you can use for each scale every time, So then I just need to label that. So I'll get rid of all these extra lines, and then just again use text. Now here, I'm going to use small text. So I'll use single line text because it works better in these situations. Yeah. I think so. Let me just double check that, sorry. Yeah, the last one is 30, isn't it? Yeah, that's right, yeah. Sorry, that doesn't make sense because, yes, it does, yeah, that's right. Yeah, for 1 to 50, so for 1 to 100 is a bit different, yeah. Okay, so, so then back to single line text, and so remember with single line text, after you click the start point, there, it always asks you for the rotation angle. So if you don't look at that and you click a point, that gives an angle. So instead, make sure you type 0 or just check and press enter. But I'll type 0 just to make it clear. And then here I'll type my 0. And you can use the grip to move that around. I'm not going to get into justification just yet. And So we'll copy that across. So the next one, what's that? I've forgotten already, but it should be 1/2 metre. Yep. So we could label that. So you could put 0.5 there. It's probably pretty clear though, if the next one is 1, then we don't really need that. That just wanted you to see. So I could make that 1, and then people can really work out, yes, that's 1/2 metre. And then the last one, exactly. Alrighty, so there we are, perfect scale bar for 1 to 50. And
Now, if you saw a beautiful scale bar, someone else has already designed and offered it up,
yeah,
should you just import someone else's?
yeah, if you're sure that they've made the sizes right, because some people, believe it or not, struggle even just with that. Yeah. So copy it, but it's often a good idea because it's so easy. Yeah. So really important that we label this for the scale it's for, because of course this doesn't work for other scales. It's up to you. You can put the numbers at the top and the scale label at the bottom, or the other way around. It's fine. So there we are. So those two things to go with the title block would be good. And once you get that done, we can have a look at using attributes and make the title block into a block. But we'll give some time to trial of that, hopefully before lunch.